Alright, so in today's Anima video, I want to talk about the lore of Anima. I've brought before you the map that's in the GM toolkit, and I've just slapped it onto the paint for now. In fact, I'm just going to adjust this a little. Oh, never mind. I'm not going to adjust shit. That's okay. It doesn't matter. I put it in paint because I'm going to be drawing stuff on the map. Because I'm going to talk about the general lore that you really need to know if you're going to be a player or if you're going to use the base setting of Gaia for anything. I won't be going into the specifics of principalities in this video. This is a general overview of most of the regions. Some regions will likely have specific videos because they can't be easily lumped into each other. But today, we're going to be most talking about the Holy Empire of Abel and the Azure Alliance, two of the more, I'd say, prominent groups on the continent of Gaia that are publicly known. I guess as a disclaimer for this video, there's a lot of stuff that's supposed to be like secret and shit in the lore. Like it's not supposed to be something that's public knowledge. So it's nice to look into those things. Go, all right, what do the common people know? What do they not know? And I think the first thing we're going to talk about is so there's all these principalities, but how do they relate to one another? So a long time ago, basically, like in the year 200-ish, there was a guy called Abel, and he lived in what will become the Principality of Abel. And he basically, like, went around and he conquered the majority of the world. Eventually, the forces of Ra were able to fight him back, and things got a little screwy for a bit after Abel was crucified and killed. Abel basically serves as Jesus in the religion story of Anima, and he was killed. Later, Zor and Giovanni would take control of things, and the Giovanni family line would basically conquer the majority of the world. And they'd hold firm to it for a very long time after generation of the Giovanni family went on. Eventually, however, the last Giovanni, I believe his name is like Lascanor Giovanni or Lazavor Giovanni. Let me just double check that. Basically, he went mad. And when he went mad, he started doing crazy things. He threw his son, Lucanor Giovanni, into a prison, into like a maze, basically. And he was just completely insane. Eventually, Lucanor Giovanni would make his way out of the maze he was thrown into, and yeah, his dad was in his last car, and he would kill his own father. The issue, however, with him killing his own father is this meant he could no longer take on the crown of the Holy Empire of Abel. And with all the chaos, a lot of the principalities of the world broke out from the Empire, and they began doing their own thing and no longer respected the rule of the Empire. So in the modern setting, there's only a few principalities that are actually a part of now the Sacred Holy Empire of Abel. And I'm going to draw their general borders. I'm just double checking. So let's see. Let's put this in a nice color. I'll put their border in blue. So they control something like... Ooh, it's hard to see in the water. Whatever. You can see it once it gets to the land. I'm just double checking to make sure the border I'm drawing is accurate. So it kind of goes along here. It's not a perfectly straight line. I'm not an expert at drawing anything. But they would control this. They don't actually control the waters, they'd claim to probably. And then they can go all the way down here. They dip down into Cannon. Oops. It goes like this, this. And there we go. So this blue line represents the Holy Empire of Abel, which controls what was the western part of the world. So that's the majority of Cannon. I don't. No, sorry, not Togarini. That's a mistake. They do not control Togarini. They would like to though. Oh God, that eraser tool in Paint is absolutely god awful. Well, I made a mistake, so I'll fix that later. But they control Cannon, Abel. They control Arlen, but not Togarini. So the border is more like It'd go more like this, you know, like it'd be along here instead. And Togarini is not a part of the Holy Empire of Abel. So ignore that blue line down here. Togarini is actually part of what is called the Azure Alliance, which is the force that acts somewhat antagonistic towards the Holy Empire of Abel. It is led by a guy called Matthew Gall, but we're not going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the Holy Empire of Abel first. So I'm going to draw the line around them just so it's more clear who's on whose side here. But basically, after Lucador Giovanni just couldn't become the emperor anymore because he killed his dad, a fellow named the Barbados family line took power instead, and from there they now control the Holy Empire. And currently, the Empress is a woman by the name of Elizabetta Barbados. She's like a 15 or something year old girl. And, oh, maybe she's even younger. She is a 13-year-old girl, which has put the Empire in a bit of an awkward state. This has created a bit more chaos, and is one of the big reasons why a lot of the principalities more recently split off. They don't believe a young girl is really capable of running the Empire. She is a capable individual for someone her age, but she certainly is not the she's not really all that ready to become the emperor yet, or empress, and she is guided by a guy named Kissedin and another person named Thaddeus Van Horseman. There's not too much on Thaddeus that I want to talk about, but all you gotta know is Kissedin is her bodyguard, and he is a veteran of many wars, and he's one of the more powerful individuals in the world, basically. But we're not talking about him. We're talking about the general, like, what's going on. So what happened to Ludo Giovanni? He wasn't allowed to lead Archangel, so the Barbados family gave him the Principality of Lucretio and allowed him to rule that place instead because they felt kind of bad for him. He kind of got fucked. He was in a, he was in a maze for his life, so Lucretio is an independent state. So they have their own borders, and they don't control anything else. They're their own deal. Beyond that, everything else is more or less an independent state. Like, there's Goldar over here to the east, but they don't really belong to anyone but themselves. They're led by a tribal, like, union, basically. But the tribes in Goldar don't exactly work together anyways, and even then, when the Empire was at full power, they didn't have a good grasp on Goldar, or Moth, or Hendel, or Hoffman, or any of those places, because of how isolated they are in comparison to the Empire. So, you can consider them independent. Moth, especially. Moth is really fucked up. It's basically a part of the world that's slowly being pulled into the Wake. But wait, what the hell is the Wake? Well, I guess we should get into that as well. I'm not entirely sure the exact timelines of everything, and when I make more specific videos going into them, I will give you more precise and exact details on particular events. But I believe it was during is it this event? Oh, okay. So basically, like I mentioned, there's a group called Ra, and they were at odds with the Holy Empire of Abel. And they activated a machine made of these black shards of metal. And this machine, when it activated, basically destroyed most magic users in the world. It caused untold destruction, destroyed many civilizations. It really fucked up Gaia. Not only that, it also created what would become a separation of Gaia and its main continent, with the continents of Sylvania and the continent that the Duke Zeris call home, whose name escapes me and is not important right now. And it created a large separation, which over the years, most humans on Gaia, on the main continents, don't believe Sylvan elves exist anymore. It's been so long, and it's so difficult to go from here to there, that news of their passing are simply things of fairy tales. Nothing to be concerned of. But this separation was also what allowed the Wake to become a bit more connected to Gaia while also being firmly disconnected. The Wake is a. It's kind of like the world inverted. It's a dreamlike place which looks just like the Gaia itself, but it's just a bit off. It's a place where dreams hold real power, and it is said that when you dream, it's where you go for your dreams to happen. Entities who are called beings between worlds tend to reside there, and the Wake is where a lot of that magical energy more or less went when the machine was activated. Beyond that, there are similar spaces like the Land of Varja, which is somewhere located around Shavat, spiritually, anyways. And these places lie in between our world and other worlds, or perhaps the other worlds, but simply other places. It's difficult to explain. There's not a lot of details, so you gotta do a bit of extrapolation when it comes to exactly what's going on. That's one part about the animal lore that's to be considered, is that some of the stuff I tell you, or you might learn for yourself by reading the books, is the subject of extrapolation, speculation, and uh, well-educated guesses. This makes reading through the lore as someone who is inexperienced a dungeon master, or game master in general, very difficult. And the point of these videos is to give a general idea of stuff. We're not going to go into mega specifics. I'm not going to dissect characters either, but we are going to talk about what's going on in the world. So like I said, Goldar, Moth, Hoffman, Hendel, they are also independent states. Their big deal in the world is Goldar, Hoffman, and Hendel. They're basically like your typical uh, Viking tribal people. They're not like super unadvanced. They're like probably on par with most people around them, but they're like very tribal. They don't have a really strict government system, and there's a lot of conflict up there between who's going to be in charge of their local region. Is the basic, we're just doing the surface level observation of who they are as a people. Once we go a bit further east to Moth, Moth is really fucked up. You don't want to go there. It's really bad. Everything horrible happens there. In this, all I'll say in this video about Moth is, if you're considering a principality to base a campaign in, don't pick Moth. In fact, I'm just drawing an X through it. Don't go there. It's bad. If you read the lore in Moth, you'll understand why. I'll make a video about Moth later. But we're not talking about Moth. It's awful. Gabriel is a true independent state. It has no connection to anyone else. Goldar, Hendel, Hoffman have a connection between each other. Gabriel's all on its own. Their big deal is they're the big trading republic in the world. And they make a lot of trade deals with the Inner Sea and the principalities that are connected to the Inner Sea. They're foe, still a part of the Empire of Abel, but they don't really do what they say. They just kind of like trade with them, really, is how to describe it. They also do some minor policing in the Inner Sea, but not really. They just kind of protect their own. The big thing you know about Gabriel is it's a place where you buy nobility with money, you're not born into it necessarily. So it's a place where individuals go to as a place to buy your way to success and to earn yourself a proper living. But it makes it dangerous. There's a lot of shady shit that happens there, and I'd recommend, if you're picking a principality to make a campaign of, I'd pick Gabriel. Because I feel there's a lot of stuff you can do there, and it's very open-ended, and it lets you go to a lot of the places really easily. But Gabriel is like the Venice of the world, which trades the Inner Sea. The Inner Sea is where all the pirate shit happens, for lack of a better word. It's full of pirates. There's a pirate hierarchy. Pirates chill there. Pirates go around. And pirates fuck shit up is the best way to describe it. The Eye of the Hurricane, which is like over here next to Zanzibar, it looks like, is where the pirates live. If you want to do a pirate campaign, you want to go there. The islands themselves, there's not too much to say about them, but I will point out the more interesting ones. The Palias Island is basically like a weird resort island with Ferris wheels and all other sort of stuff. It's the place to go for your beach episode of Anima. The island of Corvinus is really fucked up and is the location of the GM Toolkit campaign. And it's just a weird little pocket place. It's slowly falling into the wake. It is a big thing, kind of like Moth, but a bit more aggressively. And the island of Selene is where a group of called Selene is a group of all-female assassins who go do stuff. They're not too important for most campaigns, but if you need a place to find assassins, you would go here. And as we continue east, we'll talk about Phaon. Dwanhope, by the way, I'm including in the Handelhoff and Golder thing. They're mostly like Viking barbarians. Dwanholf less so though. Uh, they're not. Their identity is a lot more skewed, and it's not worth going to them. They deserve their own video. So the Feon really, but the big thing with Feon is kind of like the Denmark of not Denmark. Sorry, it's like they're the Dutch. They have a special trade relation with Shavat and Lynette, which are a weird combination of Japan and China, and they are able to trade with them very easily. And they have some trade ports, and there's a lot of like cultural like melding among them. Mostly in Feon, not in Shavat and Lynette. Let's talk about Shavat and Lynette, I guess. Lynette is probably more leaning towards Japan, and Shavat is maybe a bit more like China, but they're a bit kind of like they're really weirdly mixed together, you know. They are. It's difficult to describe exactly what they're like. But Shavat and Lynette are constantly at war. Lynette comes in with their samurai, they raid Shavat, Shavat comes back, raids them, gets stuck on the mountains. It's a constant struggle. The issue, though, is that Shavat and Lynette geographically are in a very interesting place. Where Shavat and Lynette are is the point where the separation between the real world and the Wake, or the land of Varja, is incredibly weak. And people who cast magic or summon creatures in these places can sometimes unleash portals into these worlds and cause monsters and creatures to stream out and cause all sorts of chaos. So they are very, out of all the places, despite them being far from the Empire, they're very anti spellcaster. The difference is that in Shavat, it's bad to cast normal magic, and Lynette, it's bad to summon things. So in Lynette, it's okay to be a wizard, and wizards in Lynette are treated very well, actually. But in Shavat, they'd probably kill you. And I think that's a point to talk about magic in Anima, now that I've gotten to the idea that wizards aren't very well liked. So I implied with the use of the machine that the connection between humanity and elves and shit is, like, non-existent. They don't communicate anymore because they physically can't. There's some individuals who can, but on a wide scale, we cannot. So, the biggest, most magically powered race is no longer in our purview, and they've been gone, as far as I know, for hundreds of years. People don't know about them anymore. Magic is highly illegal in the Holy Empire of Abel. If you're a wizard, you're a devil worshiper, and they'll kill you. Or that's how it's basically described. In reality, it's policed by a group called the Inquisition, who they go around and they find and destroy threats that are supernatural to the world. And they themselves use magic to do so, but they are saints. They are considered people who use magic the power of God. You know, typical religious garbage, where they're using a bad excuse to excuse them doing the bad thing they say is bad. And what they do is they recruit people who have supernatural abilities at a young age and train them to be inquisitors to, help their cause. And they mostly destroy adults who are fucking shit around, but they don't really go after, like, the weaker spellcasters. Those are a waste of their time. They're more interested in bigger threats to the world. So if you're just, like, healing the sick in a slum somewhere, they're probably not going to go after you. But if you're burning down orphanages, they're probably going to go after you. They do go after even low-end spellcasters, but it depends with what you're doing, right? If you're not, like, a big deal, they might even recruit you. If you're, like, someone who's helping out, they might get you on their side. They're not fully evil. They don't just go around killing everyone. But some Inquisitors are different, and some aren't as merciful. There are some around there who actually truly believe that if you're not one of them, that you probably worship demons. They'll kill you. And the further into the Empire you are, the more that ideology is believed. And I guess I'll talk a bit about Moth, because in late Inquisition, there is a group of Inquisitors who did go to Moth at some point to try and deal with the garbage happening there. But they're kind of fucked up now, so they're kind of like, you don't want to go to Moth. It's, like, real bad. I'm adding the second X there. Just don't go there. Just assume it's a black pit in the world, and no one wants to go there. But the Inquisition is... There's only so many of them. They don't number that large because they only recruit individuals who can actually fight wizards, which are not very many. And they don't recruit openly. They only recruit individuals, like, that they've been watching, or from certain family lines and stuff. Like, you can't just join the Inquisition. Or if you do, you're probably some like low-end foot soldier who's gonna get killed by a fireball or something. You know, like your cannon fodder. But as you get further and further away from the Empire, magic becomes more and more accepted. Uh, but in some places, people just don't believe magic exists, like in Gabriel. They don't believe in magic. They don't see it, doesn't happen. If you showed someone a magical ability in Gabriel, they'd chalk it up to a parlor trick, or if it was something they couldn't explain to that, they'd call you a demon worshiper and call it the Inquisition. But if you're in Alberia, a place that's constantly plagued by giant mega monsters, if you're a wizard and you're killing the mega monsters, they're not going to tell them about it. They're happy for you to kill giant mega monsters. In fact, they encourage you. And you know, it's kind of like that dynamic. Or if you're in Hendel or Hoffen or Goldar, they don't give a shit. Hell, a lot of their shamans probably use magic or part of their tribes to heal people and like beat their enemies up. So, depending on where you go, will dictate the level of magic that's acceptable to use in public. So, I guess the way to describe it is if you're in like Abel and you're casting a spell, you should consider that like a bad thing to do. If you're in Lucretio casting a spell, that's still a bad thing to do. If you're in fucking Bufu, Egypt, Stygia casting a spell, no one cares because no one really lives there. Speaking of, let's talk about this mess over here. Salazar, Stygia, Kushistan. This place, Stygia is the only one of these three principalities that's properly populated with a city and stuff. And with a civilization, they're very Egyptian. They worship cats. Like, I'm not even kidding. They treat cats as like royalty. If you kill a cat, they'll fucking kill you. Salazar is full of nomadic tribes and is kind of fucked up. And Kushistan is similar. There's not too much to say about them without going into like specifics, and the point of this video is to not go into specifics. But basically, it's nomadic tribes living their lives and minding their own business. But there's an ancient civilization that's beneath their feet that they know about, and they're willing to tell you about it, but not for free. Ley Domain is the papacy. They're not really the holy like papacy, but they kind of are. It's a bit weird. They're like the knockoff version of the Pope, though. The Pope would live in Ley Domain, but right now there is no Pope because the last Pope went super evil. Why they went super evil? Why, there's a video for that. Argos, they're not worth talking about right now. They'll get their own video probably when I talk about this part of the world. But they're pseudo-connected to the Holy Empire, but not really. It's not really worth getting into in this overview. All you really got to know is, like, if you want to play in France, it's right there. That's France. We go over to Nonway. Nonway is if you want to play a campaign where you're in a dense jungle, and there are people all around you who want to kill you, Nonway is a good place to be. The only civilization in Nonway is a single Holy Empire able like fortress somewhere in the jungle that they've maintained by making very strategic alliances of tribals and well, just trying not to die. Due to their superior technology, because the tribals in Nonway are actual like tribal people, they don't have like proper like metal tools and stuff. They're like Stone Age style. They have a very strenuous relationship. There are a few groups of tribals who are friendly, who try and guide people through the jungle, but most of them just want to kill you and you just take your shit. It's just how it goes. Very dangerous, very interesting. It'd be a cool campaign setting for people who really want to explore an unknown place, because that's what it is. It's not, no one knows what's there, but it's really fucked up, and people know they don't want to go there. Kashmir, not interesting. Bajo, though, that's the best horses in Gaia live in Bajo. That's all you gotta know. If you want to get your horse, you want to get a fresh horse from fucking Bajo. If you want a horse campaign, you better go to Bajo. Why do you want a horse campaign? I don't know, but if you want a horse, you get it from Bajo. That's all you gotta know about Bajo in this general overview. Kashmir, it's a big savanna. There's a few tribal people, not much civilization, a little bit here and there. Shavat, I think, is trying to colonize it, but beyond that, it's kind of a mess. And beyond that, the only other thing that really need to know as a general overview of like the world and the setting is that to the west, there's another continent. It's called Eurakia. Shit happens there. You don't need to know too much about it, but it's more fucked up than where we are right now. Technically, to the north is where Sylvania and that Duke's Reese place is, and those are the continents of the world. What's the name of Gaia's continent? Like the one we're looking at right now? Couldn't tell you. I had not found a place where they mentioned it yet. But I went into very great detail of not a lot in this video. And you might ask, Dow, what is the point of these videos? Well, here's what I'm going to do. The way I'm going to structure these videos is that for places, I'm going to go over like more general overviews. But the next video, I'm going to pick a faction. Like, and I mean like a political faction along this like map. And I'm going to go into the actual power structure, how that faction works, and talk about specific principalities in that faction. And I won't talk about the less interesting ones that don't matter. Like, don't make the video on Ilmora. It doesn't matter. It's a graveyard. And, and I'll go from there. Which faction I start with? I don't know yet. I'll figure it out. If there is a part of the world, though, that you specifically want to hear about, that interests you, like a part of the world that you're like, wow, I want to learn more about. I heard Dal rave that Bajo has the best horses, so I want to learn everything about Bajo. Then in the comments say, Dal, please make a Bajo video first. I could care less with the Holy Empire of Abel. I just want to hear about the horses from Bajo. And I'm like, alright, man. And I'll make you your horses from Bajo video, and we'll go on a Bajo adventure. Or maybe you're really into Japanese and Chinese culture, and we'll talk about Shavant and Lynette. Or maybe you want to know what the hell is wrong with Moth, because you don't want to go there. This place is bad. You really don't want to go here. It's absolutely horrendous, like god-awful. Really don't go here in a campaign. This is not the place where you want to host a campaign at all. Yeah. Anyways, post your suggestions in the comments, and I'll see how you guys like it. If you enjoyed this stuff, like, comment, subscribe, all that garbage. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this overview helps GMs like figure out a bit about this stuff, because the Lord Anima is very thick and complicated, and it doesn't always make sense, and there's a lot of like guesswork you have to do to really make it like function your mind. And it's a video series I've been wanting to make for a while, so I'm gonna make a video series about basically everything in Gaia. The information I'll be sourcing from is the Gaia Beyond the Dreams book, Gaia Beyond the Dream book is Volume 1. There is a Volume 2 that has been fan-translated, but has not been officially translated. So I won't be touching on too much with Eurakia unless you guys request it, but if you are interested, then ask about it, and I can attempt to go through that book and figure out more of it than I already have. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys later.